A little girl runs away from an orphanage and is rescued by a nurse at a hospital. That night, when no one is looking, she sneaks into a millionaire's hospital room to... The halls of St. Anne smelled of old bleach and something else, something stale, like forgotten air trapped between the walls. The ceilings were high, but the narrow windows barely let in any light, as if the place itself wanted to suffocate the hope out of those who lived inside. Children walked in silent, obedient lines, their heads down, their hands clasped behind their backs. They knew better than to speak unless spoken to. Luna had spent 5 years in this place, long enough to learn the rules that weren't written anywhere. If you spoke out of turn, you were punished. If you didn't eat fast enough, your plate was taken away. If you cried too loudly at night, a cold hand would shake you awake and tell you to shut it or else. The younger children learned quickly. Those who didn't, well, they bore the bruises to remind them. Today was no different. "Stand straight, Luna," said Miss Reed, her voice edged with impatience. The woman had the kind of face that looked carved from stone, sharp cheekbones, lips pressed in a firm line, and eyes that never softened. Luna adjusted her posture immediately, even though her thin legs ached. She wasn't the smallest child here, but she wasn't big either. At 8, she had the hollow-cheeked look of someone who never ate enough, who had grown used to hunger clawing at her ribs like a second skin. Across from her, Sarah shifted uncomfortably. They weren't supposed to move while waiting for their food, but Sarah's stomach was growling, and she rubbed it with slow, hesitant fingers. Luna caught the motion and swallowed hard. "Don't get caught. Don't get caught." A spoon clattered against the metal tray in front of them. Miss Reed's hand had moved fast, striking Sarah's knuckles before Luna even saw it happen. "Hands to your sides," Miss Reed snapped, "or do you want to skip dinner altogether?" Sarah flinched, but didn't argue. She withdrew her hands, pressing them against the thin fabric of her dress. Luna kept her head down and clenched her fists. She wanted to scream. She wanted to grab Sarah and run. But she didn't. Not yet. The fluorescent lights above buzzed faintly, a sound so persistent it had become part of the air, just like the musty staleness that clung to the orphanage walls. The halls of St. Anne's were long, lined with doors that all led to the same misery, rooms packed with children who knew better than to dream. The place called itself a sanctuary, but even at 8 years old, Luna had learned that places promising kindness rarely delivered it. She sat on the lower bunk, legs tucked close, listening to the rhythmic scratching of the rain against the windows. The wind howled like it wanted inside, like it too was trapped in the cold, empty corridors of this place. The bunk above her creaked as Sarah shifted, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're actually going to do it, aren't you?" Luna glanced up. Sarah's dark eyes peered over the edge of the mattress, wide and serious. "I have to," Luna murmured. She ran her fingers over the hem of her worn-out dress, the fabric rough, stiff from too many washes in water that never truly cleaned anything. Sarah exhaled sharply, rolling onto her side. The silence between them stretched. "You don't have to," Sarah finally said. "You could just wait. Maybe a nice family will come." Luna didn't answer. They both knew the truth. St. Anne's was full of ghosts, children who had waited and waited until the waiting swallowed them whole. The lucky ones left early, plucked out by desperate families who needed a baby young enough to forget where they'd come from. Luna was not one of them. Now, she was already teetering too close to the line, the one where children stopped being adopted and simply became part of the background, part of the system. "You saw what happened to Thomas," Luna whispered. Sarah flinched. Thomas had tried to run 2 months ago. He had made it as far as the back fence before the night guard caught him. The next morning, he returned with a limp and a silence so deep it swallowed his voice. He never spoke of what happened. He never spoke at all. "They'll hurt you," Sarah warned. Luna didn't argue. She knew it was true, but she also knew the weight of the metal spoon in her pocket, the one she had taken from the cafeteria 3 nights ago. She knew the loose panel behind the laundry bins, the one that led to the back corridor that no one used. She knew the guard on the midnight shift was old and liked to sleep in the chair by the boiler room. Most of all, she knew she couldn't stay. "I can't do this anymore," Luna admitted, her voice small but steady. Sarah chewed her lip. The bunk creaked again as she sat up, wrapping her arms around her knees. "You don't even know what's out there," she said. Luna lifted her chin. "But I know what's in here." Silence again. Rain tapping against the window like tiny fists. The distant sound of footsteps in the hallway, slow and deliberate. The night patrol. Sarah slid down from the top bunk, pressing her forehead against Luna's. "If you get caught..." "I won't." Sarah inhaled shakily, then reached under her pillow, pulling something out. In the dim glow of the emergency light, Luna saw a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "Take this," Sarah said, pressing it into Luna's hands. It was a piece of bread, rough and stale, probably stolen from the kitchen when no one was looking. "You'll need it," Sarah said, her voice thick. Luna clenched the bundle tight. "Thank you." Sarah gave a sharp nod, blinking hard. Then she turned away, pulling the blanket over her head. Luna stayed there for a moment, feeling the weight of the moment settle into her bones. Then, quietly, she slid off the bunk and moved toward the door. She waited until the footsteps in the hall faded. Then she slipped into the shadows, one foot in front of the other. It was time. Luna pressed her back against the cold brick wall, breath shallow, fingers gripping the fabric of her dress so tightly it might tear. The hallway stretched in both directions, dimly lit by the weak glow of emergency exit signs. Shadows flickered as the wind rattled the old barred windows. Miss Reed's footsteps had faded into the distance, but Luna knew better than to let her guard down. There were always more of them. Other caretakers who prowled the halls at night like starving wolves, waiting for a reason to punish. She took a step forward, the floor icy against her bare feet. Then another. Slow, careful. The air smelled of bleach and mildew, of a place meant to be clean but never truly was. She reached the end of the hallway and crouched low, peering around the corner. Nothing. This was it. She could do this. But then... "Luna," a whisper. She turned, pulse pounding. Sarah suddenly appeared behind, blankets clutched in her fists, eyes wide with something between fear and desperation. "Luna," Sarah breathed. "I'm worrying for you." Luna shook her head, pressing a finger to her lips. They couldn't talk here, not without risking everything. Sarah's knuckles went white. "Please," she mouthed. For the briefest moment, Luna hesitated. Sarah had been the only person who had ever mattered in this place, the only one who understood what it felt like to always be hungry, always be afraid. Leaving meant leaving her behind, but staying meant never leaving at all. She turned away. The air grew colder as she made her way down the stairs, each step a calculated risk. The old wooden steps creaked, but the storm outside masked the sound. Lightning flashed through the windows, illuminating the peeling wallpaper, the rusted metal railings, and the locked doors leading to the punishment rooms. She reached the ground floor. A metal chain had been wrapped around the front entrance, secured with a heavy padlock. But Luna had never intended to leave that way. She skirted the main hallway, moving toward the back of the building. She knew of a window that didn't shut all the way, an old maintenance hatch that no one had bothered to fix. Reaching it, she pressed her hands against the rotting wood, pushing until it groaned open just wide enough for her to slip through. And then, she was outside. The rain hit her like a slap, soaking her thin dress in seconds. The wind howled through the trees, bending them at unnatural angles and sending loose leaves and debris skittering across the pavement. Luna ran. Her feet slapped against wet concrete, puddles splashing up her legs, but she barely noticed. The cold bit at her skin, and the wind stung her eyes, but none of it mattered. She was free. She didn't know where she was going, didn't have a plan beyond running as far as her legs would take her. Minutes stretched into eternity. The city loomed ahead, buildings casting jagged shadows in the storm. She had never seen it up close before, only through the narrow, barred windows of St. Anne. It felt unreal. Her body ached, exhaustion clawing at the edges of her vision, but she forced herself forward. Until she couldn't. Her legs buckled. The world tilted. She crashed into the asphalt of a parking lot, knees scraping against the rough ground. She tried to push herself up, but the rain blurred everything. Her arms trembled. The cold had soaked into her bones. She blinked. Lights. A building. Tall, sterile, humming with the low electric buzz of life. A hospital. She needed shelter. Dragging herself forward, she reached the edge of the covered entrance, collapsing against the wall. The world spun, her eyelids growing heavy. The last thing she saw was a pair of shoes stopping in front of her. A voice. "Hey, hey, sweetheart, are you okay?" Then, darkness. Luna woke to warmth, a blanket tucked around her shoulders, a soft pillow beneath her head. Her eyes adjusted to the dim light. She was in a small room, the walls painted a calming blue. The scent of antiseptic lingered in the air, but it wasn't unpleasant. She shifted, the movement making her limbs ache. "Easy," a voice said. Luna turned her head. A woman sat beside the bed, a cup of tea in her hands. She had kind eyes, the kind Luna had never seen before, gentle but sharp, as if she saw everything and still chose to be kind anyway. "My name's Joyce, a nurse in here," the woman said. "You're safe now." Safe. Luna swallowed hard, her throat thick. She wanted to believe it, but she wasn't sure if she remembered how. The rain had stopped by the time Luna woke, but the air still carried the heavy scent of damp pavement. She lay still, wrapped in a blanket so soft it felt foreign against her skin. The room was quiet, save for the occasional muffled announcement from the hospital's intercom. The bed beneath her wasn't much softer than the one at St. Anne, but it was clean. It didn't smell like mildew or fear. The room was nothing like the dormitories at the orphanage. It was small but warm, the air tinged with the faint scent of antiseptic and fabric softener instead of bleach and dust. A bedside lamp cast a soft glow against the pale blue walls. It felt safe, but safe was a word Luna didn't trust. She glanced toward the door. Joyce had stepped out a while ago, leaving Luna to rest. Yet sleep didn't come easily. Her body still held the memory of cold rain against her skin, of running, of Sarah's whispered warnings. Even now, beneath the blanket, her muscles were tense, coiled tight like a spring. Her stomach growled. She blinked, eyes adjusting to the dim light. A small plate sat on the bedside table, piled with golden biscuits. Luna hesitated before reaching for one, fingers hovering over the crisp edges. Joyce must have left them for her. A small kindness. She took a bite. The sweetness of butter and sugar melted on her tongue. Real food, not the tasteless gruel she had been given at the orphanage. She chewed slowly, savoring it. Sarah would have loved this. Luna swallowed hard, suddenly aware of the empty space beside her. Guilt coiled in her stomach, heavy and sharp. She should have taken Sarah with her, should have waited. But no. If she had, they both would have been caught. She had done the right thing. She had to believe that. Luna certainly will come back and save Sarah. Still, as she finished the last of the biscuits, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had left something behind that she couldn't get back. A dry itch settled in her throat. She needed water. Sliding out of bed, Luna pressed her bare feet against the cool, tiled floor. The hallway beyond her door was dim, a single fluorescent light flickering near the far end. The hospital felt different at night, the usual hum of life reduced to an eerie stillness. She moved cautiously, stepping lightly as she wandered through the halls. It wasn't fear exactly, not like at St. Anne. But something about the silence made her wary, like she was walking through a place she didn't fully belong. A nurse passed by, pushing a cart stacked with folded sheets. Luna pressed herself against the wall, holding her breath. The woman didn't notice her. She exhaled slowly and kept moving. As she turned a corner, voices drifted toward her, low, hushed tones. "Dr. Nelson, I thought you left hours ago." Luna froze. Two figures stood near the end of the hallway, just beyond the glow of a desk lamp. One was a nurse, a clipboard tucked under her arm. The other was a tall man in a white coat, his posture relaxed, but something about him felt off. She couldn't see his face, but she could hear the smile in his voice. "Just checking in on a patient," he said smoothly. "You know how it is." The nurse hesitated. "It's after visiting hours." "I'll be quick, Doctor," Nelson assured her. The nurse didn't argue, just gave a tired nod before walking away. Luna's heart pounded. Something about the way he spoke made her stomach twist. She knew that tone. Had heard it before in the voices of the caretakers at St. Anne when they pretended to be kind in front of visitors, only to turn cruel the moment no one was watching. She pressed herself deeper into the shadows as the doctor stepped toward a door marked VIP Room, Jonathan Leach. Without another word, he slipped inside. Luna frowned. It was late. Too late for a normal checkup. A feeling crept up her spine, not quite fear, but close. She didn't know why, but she couldn't look away. Luna's breath hitched as she pressed herself closer to the wall, fingers digging into the cold tile. The hospital hallway had emptied out, leaving only the distant hum of machinery and the occasional crackle of the intercom. She watched as Dr. Nelson disappeared into the VIP patient's room, his movements too deliberate, too smooth, like a man who didn't want to be seen. Something was wrong. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She knew that she should turn back and return to the warm room Joyce had left her in. But a deep, gnawing instinct told her to move forward, to see. Barefoot, she crept along the dimly lit corridor, each step light as a whisper. When she reached the door, she hesitated, her pulse loud in her ears. The small rectangular window on the door offered a narrow view inside. Luna rose onto her toes and peered through the glass. Jonathan Leach lay unconscious in the hospital bed, his face pale beneath the glow of the monitors. His chest rose and fell in slow, steady rhythms, the soft beep of the heart monitor filling the room. He didn't look sick, just asleep. Dr. Nelson stood over him, rolling up the sleeve of his coat with an ease that sent chills up Luna's spine. He reached into his pocket and retrieved a syringe, its contents glinting under the fluorescent light. Luna's breath caught. He wasn't adjusting Jonathan's medication. He was adding something new. Her hands clenched into fists as she watched him pierce the IV bag with practiced efficiency, injecting the mysterious liquid into the clear fluid already feeding into Jonathan's veins. The movement was so smooth, so quick, that if someone hadn't been watching closely, they would never have noticed. But Luna noticed. Something about the whole thing reminded her too much of St. Anne, of the way the caretakers would lace food with something that made the younger children too tired to cry, too sluggish to fight back. It had taken her months to realize why so many of them barely spoke anymore. Now, watching Dr. Nelson, she felt that same sickening certainty. This wasn't medicine, this was something else. Her legs trembled, but she stayed rooted in place, forcing herself to keep watching as Nelson withdrew the syringe and pocketed it with practiced indifference. He adjusted the IV tube slightly, then turned away, already reaching for the door handle. Luna's stomach lurched. He was leaving, and Jonathan was in danger. She had no plan, no real thought, only instinct. As soon as the doctor stepped out and disappeared down the hall, Luna pushed the door open and slipped inside. The room smelled sterile, like disinfectant and plastic. The heart monitor beeped steadily, oblivious to what had just happened. She hesitated only a second before stepping toward the IV stand. The bag of fluid, still swaying slightly from Nelson's touch, was now tainted. Whatever he had put in there was making its way into Jonathan's veins. Luna didn't know what would happen if she did nothing, but she wasn't about to find out. She grabbed the pole of the fourth stand with both hands and yanked. The bag came loose, tumbling to the floor, its contents splashing across the tile. The sharp scent of alcohol and chemicals stung her nose. Her hands shook, but she ignored them. She had to find Joyce. Without another glance at Jonathan, she turned and fled the room, bare feet slapping against the cold floor. The hallways stretched endlessly, every shadow feeling deeper, every corner sharper. She didn't know where Joyce had gone, but she had to find her before Dr. Nelson realized what had happened. Her lungs burned as she ran, as fast and as silently as she could. She needed to tell someone. She needed to tell Joyce. Luna burst into the staff lounge, her breath coming in short gasps. The fluorescent lights cast long shadows against the walls, making the room feel smaller, tighter. Joyce sat in the corner, rubbing the bridge of her nose, exhausted from another long shift. The moment Luna saw her, the words came spilling out. "I saw him," she panted. "Dr. Nelson. He put something in the IV. I saw him do it. I knocked it over." Joyce frowned, setting down her cup of coffee. "Slow down," she said gently, though there was an edge of concern in her voice. "What do you mean you saw him?" Luna's hands trembled as she tried to explain. "He had a syringe. He injected something into the bag. It didn't look like medicine. I don't think it was." Joyce studied her, expression unreadable. Then, with a steady breath, she stood. "Stay here." Luna grabbed her sleeve, panic rising in her throat. "Please, you have to believe me." Joyce hesitated. Then she kneeled, putting her hands on Luna's shoulders. "I do believe you," she said, her voice softer now. "But I need to see for myself." Luna let go, and Joyce strode out of the room, moving with purpose. She returned minutes later, her face pale. "The IV bag's on the floor," she murmured. "The liquid spilled everywhere." Luna nodded quickly. "I knocked it over so it wouldn't go into him." Joyce exhaled sharply, pressing a hand to her forehead. "If you're right." She trailed off, eyes flickering toward the hallway. Luna didn't need her to finish. If she was right, then Jonathan Leach had just escaped something terrible. A quiet knock on the lounge door made both of them freeze. Joyce turned slowly. The door creaked open, and a nurse peeked inside. "Joyce," she said hesitantly, "Dr. Nelson is looking for you." Luna's blood ran cold. Joyce didn't hesitate. "Tell him I'll be there in a minute." The door clicked shut again, leaving them alone in the quiet. Joyce turned back to Luna, her voice low. "Listen to me very carefully. Whatever happens, don't say anything to him." Luna nodded, fists clenched. Moments later, Walter Nelson strode into the room. He didn't look angry. If anything, he looked amused, as if he were speaking to a wayward child. "Ms. Wagner," he said, his voice all silk and confidence. "We seem to have had an accident in Mr. Leach's room. His fourth bag was misplaced." Joyce didn't blink. "It must have fallen," she replied smoothly. "I'll get him a fresh one." Walter's eyes flickered to Luna. His smile was polite, but his gaze lingered too long. Luna forced herself to stay still. "Of course," he murmured, glancing back at Joyce. "Be more careful next time." With that, he turned and left, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. Luna exhaled slowly, realizing only then how tightly she'd been holding her breath. Joyce grabbed her wrist. "Come with me." They moved quickly. In the supply room, Joyce reached into the locked cabinet and pulled out a small vial. Carefully, she dipped a cotton swab into the remaining fluid in the fallen IV bag and sealed it into a sterile container. "What are you doing?" Luna whispered. Joyce's jaw was tight. Sending this for testing." Luna nodded, her heart still hammering. Neither of them spoke as Joyce sealed the evidence away. But they both knew the truth. Whatever had been in that syringe, it wasn't medicine, it was poison. The hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the linoleum floors. Joyce moved quickly, her grip firm on Luna's wrist as they navigated the quiet halls. Every corner felt like a risk, every shadow a threat. Walter Nelson wasn't the kind of man to let loose ends dangle for long, and right now, Luna was the biggest loose end of all. The girl barely made a sound as she walked, her small frame swallowed up in Joyce's coat. But Joyce could feel the tension radiating from her, the way her shoulders hunched slightly, bracing as if expecting someone to yank her back at any moment. Not tonight. Turning toward the girl, she crouched to eye level. "Luna," she said, voice steady despite the storm of thoughts raging inside her. "We can't stay here tonight. It's not safe." Luna's brows knitted together. "You mean I have to leave?" Joyce hesitated before shaking her head. I mean we. You're coming with me." Luna blinked, as if the words didn't quite fit together. "But you work here." "That doesn't matter right now." Joyce glanced toward the door, lowering her voice. "Doctor, Nelson knows what you saw. If he starts asking questions or worse, realizes that sample is missing, he won't just let it go." Luna chewed the inside of her cheek, her small fingers fisting the hem of her borrowed hospital gown. Joyce could see the gears turning in her head, the way she was already preparing to run if she needed to. The instinct to survive was ingrained deep. Joyce softened. "I won't let him hurt you, okay? But you need to trust me." A long beat of silence. Then, slowly, Luna nodded. Pushing open the rear exit, Joyce guided Luna outside into the cold night air. The parking lot stretched out in dimly lit silence. Rainwater pooled in the cracks of the asphalt, reflecting the glow of the streetlights. The storm had passed, but the chill remained. Joyce unlocked her car, ushering Luna into the passenger seat before sliding in behind the wheel. She didn't start the engine right away. Luna sat stiffly, her hands buried deep in the sleeves of Joyce's coat. She hadn't said a word since they left the hospital. "Are you okay?" Joyce asked gently. Luna gave a small nod, but her fingers fidgeted with the hem of the coat. Joyce exhaled, glancing in the rearview mirror before starting the car. "All right," she murmured. "Let's go home." The drive was quiet. Luna's eyes flickered between the window and her lap, her expression unreadable. Joyce didn't push. She knew better than to demand conversation from a child who had spent her life learning that silence was the safest option. When they pulled into the driveway of her small apartment, Joyce turned off the engine and turned to Luna. "This is where I live," she said simply. Luna stared at the building, her lips pressed into a thin line. Joyce climbed out and opened the passenger door. "Come on, it's warmer inside." After a brief hesitation, Luna followed. The apartment was modest, soft lighting, a small couch with an old knitted blanket draped over it, books stacked haphazardly on a coffee table. It smelled of lavender and something faintly sweet, like cinnamon. Luna hovered near the entrance, her body tense. Joyce could see the way she scanned the space, not with curiosity, but with the careful wariness of someone trying to gauge an escape route. "You don't have to stand there," Joyce said, kicking off her shoes. "You can sit or, well, do whatever you like." Luna's fingers twitched slightly, but she didn't move. Joyce sighed, walking to the kitchen. "I'll get you something warm to drink." A few minutes later, she returned with a steaming mug of chamomile tea. She set it on the coffee table, then sat across from Luna. "I know this is a lot," Joyce admitted, "but you're safe here." Luna glanced at the tea but didn't reach for it. "You don't believe me," Joyce guessed. Luna's jaw tightened. "They said we were safe at St. Anne too." The words were barely above a whisper, but they struck like a blow. Joyce leaned forward slightly. "I know." Luna's gaze flickered up, searching Joyce's face for something. You do? Joyce nodded. I've seen places like that before. Places that say they're taking care of kids but don't. Places where no one listens when you say something is wrong. A beat of silence. Then, hesitantly, Luna reached for the mug. She wrapped her fingers around the warmth, but didn't drink yet. Joyce let the moment settle before speaking again. I sent that sample from the 4th bag for testing, she said carefully. I'll get the results soon. Luna swallowed. What if it was poison? Joyce met her gaze. Then we'll have proof. Another silence stretched between them. Then Luna, still gripping the mug, murmured, What happens after that? Joyce sighed. I don't know yet. Luna's lips pressed into a thin line. Doctor. Nelson won't just stop. Joyce knew she was right, and that was what scared her most. A day passed. Joyce sat at the kitchen table, her phone screen glowing in the dim light. The test results had come in. High concentration of a lethal anticoagulant. Fatal if administered in full dose. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't just malpractice. It was attempted murder. And Walter Nelson was still walking the halls of that hospital, pretending to save lives. Joyce gripped the edge of the table, exhaling slowly. Luna was right. He wouldn't just stop. And now, neither could she. The beeping of the heart monitor was steady and rhythmic, a gentle pulse of sound in the otherwise silent hospital room. Jonathan Leach stirred, his eyelids fluttering before he slowly opened them. His body felt heavy, drained, as if waking from a deep fog. His throat was dry, his limbs stiff. He tried to move, but the simple act of turning his head sent a dull ache through his skull. It took a moment for his vision to focus. The room was dimly lit, the IV stand beside him standing ominous, the scent of antiseptic thick in the air. Mr. Leach? Jonathan turned his head slightly. A woman stood at the foot of his bed, her blonde hair pulled into a loose bun, her face lined with exhaustion but sharp with intent. Who? His voice came out rough, barely more than a whisper. Joyce stepped closer. I'm Joyce Wagner, a nurse here. I need to tell you something important. Jonathan swallowed, wincing at the rawness in his throat. His mind was sluggish, trying to piece together why he was here, why he felt this weak. Joyce hesitated before pulling a chair beside his bed. Mr. Leach, do you remember what happened before you were admitted? Jonathan furrowed his brow. I was working, traveling. I felt exhausted. He let out a dry chuckle, though it lacked humor. Maybe I just overworked myself. Joyce's lips pressed into a thin line. Number it wasn't exhaustion. Jonathan's fingers twitched against the sheets. Something in her voice made his stomach tighten. What are you saying? Joyce took a breath. You were poisoned. Silence. The word settled heavily in the room, thick and suffocating. Jonathan's mind reeled. Poisoned? His voice had more strength now, disbelief lacing every syllable. Joyce nodded. We don't have all the evidence yet, but I have a strong reason to believe that Dr. Walter Nelson has been tampering with your IV. He injected something into your system. Jonathan's pulse quickened. That's impossible. I wish it was. Joyce leaned forward, her hands clasped together. But a little girl saw him do it. Jonathan blinked. A child? Joyce nodded. Her name is Luna. She was the one who knocked over the IV bag before more of the substance could enter your system. If she hadn't acted, you might not have woken up at all. The reality of her words settled over him like a cold weight. He rubbed a hand over his face, trying to push through the fog in his brain. There has to be some mistake. His voice was quiet now. Joyce's expression was unreadable. I sent the liquid for testing. It came back positive for a lethal anticoagulant. A full dose would have made it look like natural organ failure. Jonathan exhaled sharply. He wasn't sure what stunned him more, that someone had tried to kill him or that they had done it so carefully. Then another realization hit him. Elena, his wife. His mind flipped back through the last conversations they had before his hospitalization. She had seemed concerned but impatient, urging him to trust the doctors, telling him he needed rest. He had assumed it was just frustration, but now... His stomach turned. He looked back at Joyce. Who else knows about this? Her lips thinned. Just me and Luna. Jonathan frowned. Not the police? Joyce hesitated. They wouldn't believe us. There's no direct evidence linking Walter. Luna's just a child, and I was the one who first placed you on that IV. If we don't have enough proof, it could turn against us. Jonathan clenched his fists. He wasn't a fool. He knew how powerful people operated. If Walter Nelson had been willing to poison him in his hospital bed, then this went deeper than just malpractice. He turned his head toward the door. Where's my wife? Joyce's eyes flickered with something unreadable. I haven't seen her yet today, but she has been insistent that you remain in Dr. Nelson's care. That confirmed it. Jonathan inhaled deeply, then exhaled through his nose. I want a different doctor, effective immediately. Joyce nodded. I'll arrange it. Jonathan closed his eyes briefly before looking at her again. And I want to see this girl, Luna. Luna visited the next morning. She was hesitant at first, her small frame stiff as she stepped into the room. Jonathan watched her from his hospital bed, trying to imagine what kind of child had the courage to act when most adults would have frozen. She didn't speak right away, eyes flicking toward the IV stand, checking, he realized, to make sure nothing was in it. You're Luna, he said finally, his voice steadier now. She nodded. Jonathan studied her for a moment before offering a small smile. I guess I owe you my life. Luna shifted. I just didn't want you to die. The honesty in her voice caught him off guard. I didn't either, he admitted. Her lips twitched at that, and for the first time, she looked at him properly. A fragile, unexpected bond began to form. Outside, in the back corridors of the hospital, a hushed conversation was taking place. Eleanor's arms were crossed, her nails digging into her palms as she stared at Walter Nelson. He's awake. Walter pinched the bridge of his nose. I know. Elena's voice was sharp, and he's requesting another doctor. Walter looked at her, his expression unreadable. Of course he is. Elena inhaled sharply, her carefully composed mask cracking. We had a plan, Walter. Walter's eyes darkened. We still do. She hesitated. What do we do now? Walter glanced down the hall toward Jonathan's room. His voice was smooth, practiced. We make sure he doesn't leave this hospital alive. Jonathan was growing stronger. Each day, he felt more like himself, though a lingering weight pressed against his chest. The knowledge that someone had tried to kill him, that someone close to him had wanted him dead. He sat up in bed, stretching his sore limbs, when Luna walked in. The little girl still moved like a ghost, her steps light, her eyes constantly scanning her surroundings. She was cautious, but today she looked slightly more comfortable. You again? Jonathan teased lightly. I'm starting to think you like hanging around hospitals. Luna didn't smile, but her lips twitched. I just wanted to see if you were still alive. Jonathan chuckled, but the sound quickly faded. I guess I should be thanking you for that. Luna didn't say anything. She just glanced at his IV stand again, as if still making sure nothing had been tampered with. Jonathan studied her. Joyce told me what you did, he said, his voice softer now. How did you knock over the IV bag? You saved my life. Luna shifted on her feet. I just did what I had to. Jonathan exhaled. He didn't want to push her, didn't want to press too hard on something that was clearly difficult for her. Instead, he changed the subject. Do you live with Joyce now? Luna hesitated, then nodded. Good, he said. She's a good person. Silence stretched between them. Then Jonathan leaned forward. "Listen, I don't know what you've been through, but I can see that you've had to take care of yourself for a long time." He ran a hand through his hair. "I don't think kids should have to do that." Luna watched him warily. "I was thinking," Jonathan continued, "I want to help. Maybe set up a trust fund for you. Something to make sure you never have to worry about where you'll sleep or what you'll eat again." Luna's fingers twitched slightly. "I don't need your money." Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "No? What do you need?" Luna hesitated before answering. "I want to help the kids at St. Anne." Jonathan was taken aback. He expected her to ask for something small, something personal, a home, a place to belong. But this was bigger. He nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "Let's go find Joyce. We'll figure something out together." They walked through the halls, Luna beside him, her small steps almost silent. Jonathan felt stronger than he had in days, though every step was a reminder of how close he had come to not making it. As they turned a corner, voices stopped them in their tracks. Jonathan's stomach twisted at the familiar sound of Elena's voice. "He's getting suspicious," she was saying, her voice low and sharp. "You said he wasn't supposed to wake up." "I know what I said," Walter replied, frustration seeping into his tone. "But we didn't get the full dose in him." Luna grabbed Jonathan's sleeve, eyes wide. He motioned for her to stay quiet as they moved closer to the edge of the wall, just enough to see. Elena stood close to Walter, her arms crossed tightly. She looked nothing like the concerned wife who had visited his bedside just days ago. "What if he finds out?" Elena hissed. "What if he already suspects you?" Walter cut in. "You've been too obvious, pushing too hard. If you'd just let me handle it." "Handle it?" Elena's voice was sharp now. "You mean kill him?" Walter exhaled through his nose, his patience thinning. That was the plan, wasn't it? Jonathan's fingers curled into fists. Beside him, Luna's breathing quickened. It wasn't just Walter. Eleanor had been a part of this too. Jonathan's mind raced. He needed to act, now. Straightening his posture, he stepped forward, clearing his throat loudly. Eleanor and Walter froze. Their heads snapped toward him, eyes wide with shock and something else, fear. "Jonathan," Eleanor started, her voice shifting instantly, smoothing into something sweet and concerned. "You're out of bed." "Save it," Jonathan said coldly. His heart pounded, but his voice was steady. He turned toward Walter. "I heard everything." Walter's expression darkened. "You tried to kill me," Jonathan continued, his voice rising now. "And you—" He turned toward Elena, disgust lacing his tone. "My own wife helped him." A murmur started in the hallway. Nurses and doctors were stopping to listen. A few security guards lingered nearby. "Jonathan, you're confused," Elena tried again, stepping forward, reaching for his arm. "You're still weak. You don't—" Jonathan jerked his arm away. "Don't touch me." Eleanor's face paled. Walter straightened his posture, adjusting the cuffs of his white coat. "This is a misunderstanding," he said smoothly. "We should discuss this in private." Jonathan laughed, though there was no humor in it. "No, I think we should discuss it right here." He turned toward the growing crowd. "Did everyone hear that?" His voice echoed down the hall. "Because I sure did." Elena's breathing turned shallow, panic creeping into her features. "Jonathan, I'm pressing charges," Jonathan cut her off. "Against both of you." Gasps rippled through the staff. Walter's mask finally cracked. He grabbed Elena's arm, voice low and urgent. "We need to leave. Now." But it was too late. Security had already started moving in. Jonathan exhaled slowly, his body still trembling from adrenaline. He turned his gaze downward. Luna was staring at him, her expression unreadable. For the first time in days, Jonathan felt like he had control again. And for the first time in years, Luna saw someone actually win against the monsters. The days that followed felt like a blur. Jonathan was finally free from the hospital, his strength slowly returning, but the weight of betrayal lingered like a dull ache in his chest. Walter and Elena had been arrested. Their attempt to silence him had backfired spectacularly. Yet even with justice in motion, something unsettled him, an emptiness that stretched beyond what they had done to him. But there was something else too, a reason he felt a little lighter when he saw Luna sitting in Joyce's car as they pulled up to his estate for the first time. Joyce had agreed to bring her by after everything had settled. Jonathan had requested it. She had saved his life. She deserved more than a thank you. Luna hesitated before stepping out of the car. Her small fingers gripped the door handle tightly, her dark eyes scanning her surroundings with the same careful wariness she always carried. Jonathan watched her from the porch, his hands tucked into his pockets. "You don't have to be nervous," he said, as she finally approached. Luna shrugged, stuffing her hands into the oversized sleeves of her sweater. "Not nervous, just not used to places like this." Jonathan's lips twitched. "I get that." Joyce stepped up beside Luna, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. "Jonathan wanted to talk to you about something." Luna tilted her head slightly, curious but still guarded. Jonathan cleared his throat. "I wanted to ask you something, Luna. After everything that's happened, I don't think you should have to worry about what comes next. So I want to help." Luna's brow furrowed. "Help how?" Jonathan exhaled, his voice softer now. "By making sure you have a home, a real one. I'd like to adopt you." The words hung in the air between them. Joyce looked at Luna, watching her closely, but the little girl didn't react the way Jonathan had expected. She didn't cry or gasp or even smile. She just stood there, silent, her expression unreadable. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Luna shook her head. "I don't want that." Jonathan's stomach tightened. "Why not?" Luna didn't meet his gaze. "Because I already have a home." She turned to Joyce then, her eyes searching, as if waiting for permission to say what she really meant. Joyce didn't hesitate. She knelt in front of Luna, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "You mean with me?" Luna nodded, her voice quieter now. "Yeah." Jonathan let out a slow breath, something between relief and something else, something warm, settling in his chest. He had expected Luna to want a new life, a fresh start, but what she wanted wasn't something money could buy. She already had a family. Jonathan smiled, nodding. "Then that's where you belong." Luna looked up at him, her expression softer now. "You're not mad." Jonathan huffed a quiet laugh. "Mad? Number, I think you made the right choice." She studied him for a moment, then nodded once. Jonathan turned to Joyce. "I still want to help. I can provide for both of you. Make sure you have everything you need. And more than that, I want to do something for the kids at St. Anne." Joyce's eyes widened slightly. "What do you mean?" Jonathan's jaw tightened. "I want to shut it down. That place should have been exposed a long time ago. Those kids deserve better. If Luna hadn't escaped when she did." He trailed off, shaking his head. "I don't want any other child going through what she did." Luna looked up at him then, her expression unreadable for a moment before she nodded. "Good," she said simply. Jonathan chuckled. "Good." Luna's lips twitched. "Yeah, someone should do it. Might as well be you." Jonathan let out a deep breath, shaking his head slightly. "I guess that settles it then." Joyce reached for Luna's hand, squeezing gently. "We'll be okay, Jonathan. But thank you." Jonathan met her gaze and nodded. "It's the least I can do." Luna shifted on her feet. "So, does this mean I still get to visit?" Jonathan grinned. "Any time you want." Luna nodded, satisfied. "Good. You're kind of a mess. You might need help keeping things in order." Jonathan laughed. "I'll keep that in mind." As Joyce led Luna back to the car, Jonathan watched them go, something settling in his chest. He had gained something that day. A purpose. And maybe, just maybe, a family after all. The investigation into St. Anne began swiftly. Jonathan wasted no time leveraging his influence, ensuring the orphanage's doors wouldn't stay open much longer. He wanted answers, but more than that, he wanted justice. He wanted every child inside that place to have a chance at something better, something Luna never had. Within a week, authorities swept through St. Anne. Reports of mistreatment surfaced, stories eerily similar to Luna's. Children forced into silence, punished for the smallest infractions, starved of both food and kindness. The caretakers, those who had hurt and terrorized children for years, were exposed, removed, and arrested. Jonathan watched it unfold, feeling both satisfaction and regret. Satisfaction that justice was finally served, but regret that it had taken this long for someone to notice. The day St. Anne officially shut its doors, Joyce and Luna stood beside him. "It's over," Joyce murmured, watching as the last of the staff were led away in handcuffs. Luna didn't say anything. She stood still, staring at the building's cold grey walls, her face unreadable. Jonathan knelt beside her. "How do you feel?" Luna was quiet for a long moment before she finally spoke. "I feel lighter." Jonathan nodded. He understood that feeling. Joyce wrapped an arm around Luna's shoulder, pulling her close. "You don't ever have to come back here." Luna let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She nodded, and then she turned away. A week later, Joyce and Luna sat on a bench in the middle of the park, soaking in the afternoon sun. It was a rare, warm day, the sky clear and open, the air fresh with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers. Luna kicked her feet against the ground, watching a group of kids chase each other across the grass. Laughter filled the air, carefree and light. It was a sound she had never known at St. Anne. Joyce stretched her arms, sighing in contentment. "Feels nice to just sit, doesn't it?" Luna nodded, though her eyes never left the children playing. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't left?" she asked suddenly. Joyce looked at her, brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" "If I had stayed. If I hadn't run away." Luna's voice was steady, but there was a weight to it. Joyce hesitated before answering. "I think you would have survived, because you're strong." Luna turned to her. "But would I have been okay?" Joyce met her gaze, understanding passing between them. "No," she admitted, "you wouldn't have." Luna nodded again, as if she had already known the answer. Then, from across the park, a familiar voice called out, "Luna?" Luna's breath caught. She turned sharply, eyes scanning the park until they landed on a girl standing near the playground, a girl with soft brown curls and bright, familiar eyes. Sarah. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Luna was up, sprinting across the grass. Sarah met her halfway, arms wrapping around Luna in a tight, breathless hug. "You're okay," Sarah whispered, voice shaking. Luna squeezed her eyes shut, pressing her face into Sarah's shoulder. "You too." Sarah pulled back, wiping at her eyes. "I thought you were gone forever." Luna shook her head. "Not forever." She glanced past Sarah, noticing a woman standing nearby, a kind-looking lady with a gentle smile. "My adoptive mom," Sarah explained. "She's really nice." Luna felt something deep in her chest loosen, something she hadn't even realized she was still holding. She turned back to Joyce, who was watching from the bench, smiling softly. Sarah tugged her hand. "Come on, let's play." Luna hesitated. She had never really played before. Not like the other kids, but maybe she could learn. She turned back to Joyce one last time. Joyce gave her an encouraging nod. And for the first time, Luna let herself run, not to escape, not to hide, but simply to be free. The months that followed brought change, real change. Jonathan kept his promise, ensuring that the children from St. Anne were placed in better homes, cared for in ways they had never known before. But his work didn't stop there. The Leach Foundation for Orphaned and Vulnerable Children was established, dedicated to ensuring that no child would suffer the way Luna had. It wasn't just about saving them from cruelty, it was about giving them a future, a real chance. Luna didn't fully understand the weight of what Jonathan was doing, not at first, but she saw the way his name started appearing in the news, the way Joyce would read the articles aloud over breakfast, pride evident in her voice. Luna never asked about the money Jonathan had set aside for her, nor did she care. What mattered was that St. Anne was gone, that no one else would have to live through what she and Sarah had endured. That was enough. Jonathan visited often. At first it was just to check on Luna, to make sure she was adjusting. But as time passed, his visits became less about obligation and more about something else, something he hadn't expected. Family. "Are you ever going to stop showing up?" Luna asked one evening, watching as Jonathan set a bag of groceries on Joyce's kitchen counter. Jonathan smirked. "Not a chance." Joyce chuckled as she unpacked the bags. "You do realize we're fully capable of shopping for ourselves, right?" Jonathan leaned against the counter. "I know, but I happen to enjoy being useful." Luna raised an eyebrow. "You don't look very useful. You just stand there while Joyce does all the work." Jonathan placed a hand over his heart in mock offense. "That's because I'm supervising." Luna rolled her eyes but didn't fight the smile that tugged at her lips. It had been like this for months now, Jonathan stopping by after work, sharing meals with them, staying long after he should have left. It was strange at first, letting someone new in, but he never overstepped, never tried to push his way into her life. He just showed up, and somehow that was enough. One evening, Joyce sat Luna down with a stack of papers in her hands. "This is important," she said gently, setting them on the table. Luna frowned. "What is it?" Joyce hesitated, then slid one of the documents toward her. "It's the official paperwork, making me your legal guardian." Luna's breath caught. She had always known, deep down, that Joyce had taken her in, that Joyce was never going to send her back. But to see it written down, to have it be real. She swallowed, her hands tightening in her lap. "You mean, it's official?" Joyce nodded. "It's official." Luna looked at her for a long moment, trying to put words to the feelings swelling in her chest. She settled for something simple. "Good." Joyce smiled. "Good?" Luna nodded, exhaling slowly. "Yeah, good." Jonathan, who had been watching from the doorway, smiled quietly to himself. For the first time, Luna had a home. The sky was painted in soft gold and pink as the sun dipped below the horizon. The three of them sat in the park, watching the world settle into dusk. Luna sat between Joyce and Jonathan, holding a book in her lap, but not really reading it. "I was thinking," Jonathan said suddenly, "since things are settled now, maybe we should take a trip." Joyce raised an eyebrow. "A trip?" Jonathan nodded. "Yeah, something new, a fresh start." Luna tilted her head. "Where?" Jonathan smirked. "Wherever you want." Luna thought about it for a moment before shrugging. "Somewhere with a beach." Jonathan laughed. "A beach it is, then." Joyce shook her head in amusement. "Are you sure you're not just trying to bribe your way into being the favorite parent?" Jonathan grinned. "Is it working?" Luna looked between them, watching the easy way they spoke, the way they fit together like pieces of something whole. She had never thought she would have this, but here they were. A home, a family, a future. And for the first time in her life, Luna allowed herself to believe that things were only going to get better from here. If this film touches your heart, leave your mark with a like, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to explore more meaningful stories with us. Share your feelings with us and tell us your own stories. Every word you share is a building block that helps create our strong and enduring community. Together, we'll create a warm space where everyone can share and connect. Finally, don't miss the incredible stories coming your way soon. We're always here to bring you the best selections, full of deep values, yet entertaining. See you there.